I'm going to start with some of the innovations in management of arthritic knee, since it is one of the commonest problems bothering our patients. It's impairing the functional status of the patient. It's second only to the low back ache, but the commonest problem is low back ache. Still, we see in most of our patients, but the second common is the osteoarthritis of the knee, which is alarmingly increasing due to the lifestyle, obesity, and it is found to be the most common cause of analgesic abuse, increasing the number of renal impact patients. And more than that, the controversies of management is increasing day by day. Because it needs individualized therapy for the patients. Each patient is a different patient who needs a different sort of therapy. And one shot, the monotherapy do not work. So broadly we can classify arthritis into degenerative, inflammatory, infective. As we all know about that, I am not going to elaborate on that. And clinically there should not be any warmth unless it is an acutely inflamed osteoarthritis with large effusion, and the usual deformity is a varus deformity. So we could see the cartilage, the pristine cartilage in the lateral aspect. So this is covering the underlying rough bone. So when the cartilage is lost, the underlying rough bone is exposed, which rubs against each other, and it causes a lot of pain and a lot of effusion and soft tissue damages. So one small thing which I want to know, I want to share is, this is the biomechanics of knee has to be understood in treating osteoarthritis. The normal valgus alignment has to be present or restored when treating in a osteoarthritic knee. Normally the knee is in a little valgus position, and the joints per line should be parallel of all the three joints, hip, knee and ankle should be parallel. If anything is altered, that could be a rapid progression of osteoarthritis. The alteration could be, as I already told you, it could be a degenerative or a post-traumatic or infective or inflammatory. So diagnosis is predominantly clinical, but radiology will be helpful in monitoring the disease, and we will be taking a baseline X-ray, but X-ray should be a weight-bearing X-ray, and special views such as the Rosenberg views, like the patient should be in the standing and flexion view, so that we can assess the exact involved compartment. And skyline views and full length alignment views are mandatory to manage these patients. MRI can be useful only if there is any lytic lesions, or if there is to rule out associated ligamental injury, especially in younger individuals, not in elderly individuals. But the role of diagnostic arthroscopy is very limited. So coming to the management, so it's a multimodal approach. Obviously, the lifestyles has to be changed. When there is an early osteoarthritis, there should be lifestyle modification has to be implemented, and medical management, intervention measures are also useful, and surgical management can be broadly classified into a joint preservation, joint replacement surgery, very rarely fusion surgery. So whatever our aims of management, we are not aiming for a cure of the disease, because we cannot cure this disease. But our management aim is to relieve pain, to reduce the disease progression, to improve the joint function, to improve the muscle strength and balance, so that the elderly patients should not fall. So because of a knee problem, there is an increased incidence of fall, and they could end up in a hip fracture. So idea is to delay the joint replacements, so that they can live with either their own joint, or at least a primary knee replacement alone. So overall, our aim is to improve the quality of life. So coming to the AAOS guidelines for OA knees, it's the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. So they have prescribed the guidelines for treating OA knees. Among this, their recommendation, the strong recommendation is, the patient should be taught about self-management programs, like they should be taught how to take care of their knees, and strengthening exercises, especially the low impact aerobic exercises, and neuromuscular education to regain their proprioception to avoid the falls is very strongly recommended. And if the BMI is more than 25 and if the patient is having a symptomatic OAV, weight loss is definitely recommended. So these are the strong guidelines from the AAOS group. So coming to the pharmacotherapy, I use a lot of paracetamol, 1 gram in 3 to 4 doses. Still there is a controversial recommendation for using paracetamol, but still I feel it is safer to give paracetamol, and usually patients respond very well. And NSAIDs only to be used for acute exacerbations, that too in a very short duration, because our patients have the habit of taking the tablet for years together with a single prescription. That too with the help of our pharmacists, they can take any type of drug which you write. But I don't think there is a role for prednisolone, but I could see some of the prescriptions carrying prednisolone for OAV. It should be definitely stopped. And regarding the role of COX-2 inhibitors, but recent report says that they actually increases the OA, because since the selective COX inhibitors inhibit the COX pathway, there is an increased lipoxin generation. So the lipoxygenase is not inhibited, so the leukotriene B4 and the subsequent inflammatory mediators like interleukin 1 beta, they are accelerating the OA. The matrix metalloproteinases levels are increasing in patients who are treated with COX-2 inhibitors. They actually degrade the cartilage and it progresses the OA. So coming to the glucosamine controversy, the AAOS strongly says that they do not recommend using glucosamine and chondroitin for patients with symptomatic osteoarthritis of the knee. This is after analyzing a lot of papers. Still it's controversial. Other studies shows that glucosamine in a single daily dose of 1500 milligram may be useful in early OA. But I am not a user of glucosamine. Coming to the newer drugs, again we don't have a lot of papers to support this, but the promising results are from bioactive collagen peptides. So personally we could see some improvement in some of the patients, especially with the crepitus is going down and patients are feeling better with the collagen peptides. And the drug is Univestin. There's a lot of phytotherapies are coming to the market. So they are identifying the molecules, active molecules from the plants. So and they are analyzing and they say that it's working well. So I don't have many large personal experience with that. One such is the Univestin. It's a bioflavonoid from 2 herbs, Chinese calcab and black catechu. It works on both the COX and LOX enzymes. The other molecule is curcumin, our turmeric. It is chemically diphenylyl methane. It is safe, as we all know about turmeric. It inhibits all the inflammatory mediators like COX-2, LOX, TNF alpha and nuclear factor kappa B. And the last one is the Boswellia serrata. Is this acetyl ketoboswellic acid which inhibits direct lipoxygenase. I don't know more about this. I don't know much about this Boswellia, but these are all the drugs which are given in literature. So coming to the procedural recommendations, what is the role of intra-articular viscous hyaluronic acid? Is it useful or not? AAOS recommends against its use in symptomatic OA patients, but other studies show that may be useful in grade 1 or OA. So it has to be individualized. But still, many companies are coming with single dose hyaluronic acid which is to be given once in a year. And intra-articular steroids, again it is to be used only in acute inflammation with diffusion, not in chronic states where the patient do not have any signs of inflammation. And it is very useful in other inflammatory arthritis. Coming to the surgical therapy, if the patient is an younger age group, we try to preserve the joint. So coming to the joint preservation surgery, arthroscopic joint lavage, again many studies say they do not work in OA unless it's going to be a mechanical locking symptoms with a loose body or a large meniscal tear which is causing a locked knee. Maybe it could be useful for do a arthroscopic lavage that or a debridement in younger age groups, not in established and elderly OA patients. But in younger age groups, less than 60 years, if we want to preserve the joint, the other good option is high tibial osteotomy. That is, we are realigning the knees so that the affected joint is protected from subsequent weight stresses. So the joint reaction force are transferred to the unaffected compartment so that the affected compartment is protected. So this is a high tibial osteotomy which is done for an isolated medial compartment OA where the joint reaction force in a varus knee goes to the medial part of the joint. Here we are realigning the tibia so that the joint reaction force mechanical axis goes down in the lateral compartment and the medial compartment is unloaded. So for this to be done, the patient has to be in a younger age group, preferably less than 60, and ACL should be very much intact and the BMI should be less than 30. If we are able to catch the patients early and do a high tibial osteotomy, the patient will be fortunate enough to have their own knee at a very good range of motion. So coming to the replacement surgeries are indicated only when the joint becomes completely worn out and when they became mechanically malaligned and when there is significant limitation of the activities of daily living and repeated episodes of instability, and as I earlier told that severe OA predisposes to OA falls. So all to lead an inactive independent life. So coming to as the name itself suggests for our conference, I want to share about the innovations in replacements. Coming to the concept of partial knee replacement. So when there is a burst tire in one of our cars, we would like to replace only one tire and we will not replace all other tires. So likewise, in isolated medial compartment osteoarthritis, why should we replace the lateral compartment which is completely normal and the patellofemoral compartment which is also normal? So the answer is unicondylar knee replacement. Here is an example of a patient who had an isolated medial compartment osteoarthritis with a preserved lateral compartment and there is a minimal varus deformity. Here the medial compartment is replaced alone with the help of a small prosthesis. This is the femoral prosthesis, the tibial prosthesis with an insert in between them. So in this patient, this gave a solution for an isolated medial compartment arthritis, whereby we are replacing only the medial compartment and we are preserving the lateral compartment. So what are the advantages of doing a unicondylar replacement? There is very minimal bone resection and mimics the natural joint. So the patient can sit, squat, and even do deep flexion activities. Some of the patients are doing even yoga, and we are preserving the ligaments like ACL and lateral meniscus, and it should be done only for highly demanding persons. Here is a video showing a lady who was a little bit younger age group, but she had an isolated medial compartment. She has a very good range of movement after a knee replacement. So that's a full flexion. So coming to the established OA with a gross mechanical derangement. So there is no question of giving medical therapy for such gross deformities. Here the mechanical axis is totally deviated and the medial compartment is completely lost and the knee is in complete varus. So this sort of knees, they need mechanical solution and not medical therapy. And bilateral problem mostly needs single stage therapy rather than a stage therapy, so that the rehabilitation is much easier for the patient. As the incidence of hip fractures in such mechanically deranged knees is very high. So when a patient with such a knee falls down and has a hip fracture, when we have to operate and fix the hip, when we ask them to move around, they were unable to do that because of a knee problem. So had we done a knee replacement at the right time, we could have avoided a hip fracture. So what is new in doing a total knee replacement? That is, the total knee replacement is not a new procedure, it is an established procedure. But The only problem with that procedure is sometimes the patient may experience a increased pain in the post-operative period. So to cut short the post-operative sufferings, so we need to innovate to our approach to the knee. One such approach is a mini subvastus approach, which is a muscle preserving surgery. That is, we approach the knee beneath the vastus medialis muscle, which makes practically no blood loss for our patients and which gives immediate recovery of the quadriceps function. This is our vastus medialis muscle, and this is the way we are going to approach the knee. This is a traditional way where we are cutting the quadriceps muscle. This is the innovative way where we are preserving the muscle. We are just shifting the vastus medialis along with the entire quadriceps muscles laterally and expose the distal femur completely. We are just incising the vastus medialis obliquus upon urosis and subflex the patella, clear the suprapatellar pouch, and with the extreme external rotation we can very well see the articular surface of femur and tibia to do our work. We just see this small video of final implantation of our prosthesis. So with the extreme external rotation and the strategic position of our retractors, we can deliver the tibia very well through a small approach. So with a small window, we can very well see the articular surfaces, and then we can do our procedure comfortably without any difficulties. Here we are doing an all poly. Actually, doing in all poly is difficult in minimally invasive approaches, but still we can do if you procedure it properly. The key is we have to rotate the leg externally. Extreme external rotation is needed to expose the tibia and the femur. So we are just closing the muscle, we are not cutting through the muscle. Here is one such example of an elderly lady. Fortunately, she recovered from epidural anesthesia on table itself at the end of the surgery. So you are just happy to see the results of quadriceps recovery immediately. The patient is able to do an active SLR on the table. Here is an elderly lady who had a bilateral varus deformity of the knee, gross OA, with the loss of the medial tibial condyle, who has been operated. This was a lady who has had an intraoperative recovery of the quadriceps muscle. She had a very good function and deep flexion also, almost 120. Here is a septuagenarian who had bilateral severe OA knee varus deformity with fixed flexion deformity of both the knees, especially the right more than the left, and she had been operated in the same way. And this is the way at the time of suture removal. He comes without even a support. He just walks alone. We can do even tri-compartment replacements, like we can do a patellar surfacing in subvastus approach. So it is not difficult to avert the patella. We can do that. We can see there is no blood loss in the post-op drain. Even the blood doesn't come to the belt. Some other examples, who had difficulty walking. She used to walk only by inches. So now after this, she walks daily for a kilometer. Some of the difficult cases like very gross deformity with loss of the medial tibial condyle. This patient has been managed with a bone graft and a screw and a normal prosthesis. He had a very good recovery. So one of the complex cases like post-polio paralysis with severe OA with quadriceps weakness. So we need to think of different things to treat such difficult patients. Like in this patient, the quadriceps is very weak. So we need to have a prosthesis which is designed to do treat such patients. So we need to give a stable knee for this patient. See, for example, we can see the gait, the posteriorly we can see the tibial condyle jutting out through the posterior soft tissues. That was the degree of deformity. So we need to use a special process like link prosthesis. After that, the patient had a very straight knee and she was able to walk immediately on the immediate post-operative period. With severe rheumatoid knees, in younger age group also, sometimes we need to do a replacement at younger age group. Like she's a very poor lady, but with extreme crippled, and she was in bed for almost 6 to 8 months. So from getting out of bed also she needs support. She wanted to have a walker, and complete loss of joint space with severe osteopenia. So this sort of bilateral disease has to be managed in single stage so that the rehabilitation is very, very easy for them. Likewise, we can see the fifth post-operative disease, the patient is walking in an erect manner with the support, and within a month she is able to walk without any support. So the advantages of doing a single stage replacement using a minimally invasive approach like mini subvastus approach is the pain relief with the functional ability is our goal, and success of the procedure is well established, as we all know. And post-op pain management is very critical. So we need to use multimodal therapy to give ideal pain relief for the patient. And aggressive rehabilitation is a must for the success of the surgery. So to summarize, for a knee with a mild stage disease, I would suggest a lifestyle modification with a mild to moderate pharmacotherapy and interventions like injections. And severe stage, definitely surgical intervention would be a use for the patient. I thank you one and all for the patient care.